The Seven Dials Mystery, Chapter 18. Our story now has to be told in 3 separate parts. It was going to be an eventful night, and the 3 people involved would each experience it differently. We'll start with the pleasant young man, Mr. Jimmy Thesiger. He had just finished saying goodnight to his partner, Bill Eversley. "Don't forget 3 a.m., Bill said. "If you're still alive, that is," he added kindly. "I might be stupid," Jimmy replied, thinking about the insult Bundle had repeated to him, "but I'm not as stupid as I look." "That's what you said about Jerry Wade," Bill said slowly. "Remember? And that very night he—" "Shut up, you idiot! Have some tact!" "Of course I have tact," Bill said. "I'm an aspiring diplomat. All diplomats have tact." "Ah," said Jimmy, "you must still be in the beginning stages then." "I can't get over Bundle," Bill suddenly changed the topic. "I honestly thought she'd be, well, difficult." "Bundle has gotten much better." "That's what your boss was saying," Jimmy confirmed. "He said he was pleasantly surprised." "I thought Bundle was exaggerating a little myself, but Cotters is such a fool he'd believe anything. Well, night-night. I expect you'll have a hard time waking me when it's time, but keep trying." "It won't help if you end up like Jerry Wade," Jimmy said nastily. Bill looked hurt. "Why do you have to make a person feel bad?" he asked. "I'm just getting my own back. Go on, off you go." But Bill stayed, shifting uncomfortably from one foot to another. "Look," he said. "Yes?" "What I mean is, you'll be okay, right? Joking is one thing, but when I think of poor Jerry and then poor old Ronnie—" Jimmy stared at him, frustrated. Bill meant well, but his attempts to be encouraging were definitely not helping. "I see," Jimmy said. "I'll have to show you Leopold." He slipped his hand into the pocket of the dark blue suit he'd just changed into and showed Bill something. "A real, genuine, blue-nosed automatic pistol," he said with quiet pride. "No, really?" Bill asked, clearly impressed. "Stevens, my man, got it for me. It's guaranteed to be clean and reliable. You push the button, and Leopold does the rest." "Oh," Bill said. "Hey, Jimmy." "Yes?" "Be careful, won't you? Don't just start shooting it. It would be pretty bad if you shot old Digby while he was sleepwalking." "It's fine," Jimmy said. "Of course, now that I've bought old Leopold, I want to use him, but I'll control my violent urges as much as possible. Well, night-night," Bill said for the 14th time, and this time he actually laughed. Jimmy was now alone to start his watch. Sir Stanley Digby's room was at the very end of the west wing. A bathroom was on one side, and a connecting door on the other led into a smaller room where Mr. Terence O'Rourke was staying. The doors of these 3 rooms opened onto a short hallway. Jimmy's job was simple. A chair placed quietly in the shadow of a wooden cupboard, right where the hallway met the main gallery, was the perfect spot to watch from. There was no other entrance to the west wing, so anyone going in or out would have to pass him. One electric light was still on. Jimmy settled in comfortably, crossed his legs, and waited. Leopold lay ready across his lap. He checked his watch. It was 12:40 a.m., exactly 1 hour since everyone had gone to bed. The only sound breaking the silence was the distant ticking of a clock somewhere. For some reason, Jimmy didn't like that sound much. It brought back memories, Gerald Wade, and those 7 ticking clocks on the fireplace. Who had put them there? And why? He shivered. This waiting was creepy. He understood why strange things happened at fortune-telling meetings. Sitting in the dark, you get tense, ready to jump at the slightest noise. And bad thoughts crept into his mind. Ronnie Devereaux and Jerry Wade, both young, full of life and energy, normal, fun, healthy young men. And now, where were they? In the cold ground, being eaten by worms. Ugh, why couldn't he get these horrible thoughts out of his head? He looked at his watch again. 1:20 a.m. How slowly the time passed. Bundle was an incredible girl. Imagine having the courage and daring to actually get inside the Seven Dials location. Why hadn't he had the courage and initiative to think of that? He supposed it was because the idea was so crazy. Who on earth was number 7? Was he maybe in the house right now, dressed as a servant? He surely couldn't be one of the guests. No, that was impossible. But then the whole situation was impossible. If he hadn't believed Bundle to be completely honest, he would have thought she made the whole thing up. He yawned. It was weird to feel sleepy and tense at the same time. He looked at his watch again. 1:50 a.m. Time was passing. And then suddenly he held his breath and leaned forward, listening. He had heard something. The minutes passed. There it was again, the creak of a floorboard. But it sounded like it came from downstairs. There it was again, a slight, worrying creak. Someone was moving quietly around the house. Jimmy quickly and silently stood up. He crept quietly to the top of the stairs. Everything seemed perfectly quiet, yet he was completely sure he had heard that quiet sound. It wasn't his imagination. Very slowly and carefully, he crept down the stairs, Leopold gripped tightly in his right hand. Not a sound in the large hall. If he was right that the muffled sound came from directly below him, it must have come from the library. Jimmy quietly went to the library door, listened, but heard nothing. Then suddenly throwing open the door, he turned on the lights. Nothing. The large room was bright with light, but it was empty. Jimmy frowned. I could have sworn, he whispered to himself. The library was a big room with 3 windows that opened onto the terrace. Jimmy walked quickly across the room. The middle window was unlatched. He opened it and stepped out onto the terrace, looking both ways. Nothing. Looks okay, he whispered to himself. And yet... He stood lost in thought for a minute. Then he stepped back into the library. Walking to the door, he locked it and put the key in his pocket. Then he switched off the light. He stood for a minute listening, then walked softly to the open window and stood there, Leopold ready in his hand. Was that the soft sound of feet running along the terrace? No, his imagination. He gripped Leopold tightly and stood listening. In the distance, a stable clock chimed 2 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.